A lion walks into a hospital carrying a baby, leaving everyone frozen in shock. But when the nurse uncovers the truth, it will leave you utterly speechless. The rain poured down in relentless sheets, blurring the neon glow outside St. Mary's Hospital in Phoenix, Arizona. Inside, Nurse Elia Carter sat at her station, nursing a lukewarm cup of coffee, her eyelids heavy with exhaustion. It was just another long, demanding night, or so she thought. The soft chime of the automatic doors opening barely registered at first. Expecting a late-night visitor or an emergency crew, she glanced up casually. But the moment her eyes landed on the entrance, her breath hitched. Her mug slipped from her fingers, shattering on the floor. Standing in the doorway was a lion, a massive, golden-maned beast. Its fur, soaked from the storm, stood motionless as rain lashed the pavement behind it. The bustling hospital fell into stunned silence. No one moved, no one spoke. But the lion wasn't roaring. It wasn't aggressive. It simply stood there, its amber eyes scanning the room. And then Elia saw it. Gripped gently in its powerful jaws was a small, wrapped bundle. Her heart pounded. The lion took slow, deliberate steps forward, its massive paws clicking against the polished hospital floor. It wasn't here to attack. It was here for something else. Something unthinkable. Security hesitated, unsure of what to do. Doctors and nurses exchanged bewildered glances, frozen by the surreal sight before them. Yet despite the sheer impossibility of it all, Elia felt no fear, only an unexplainable pull, a deep, instinctive connection with the creature. The lion stopped. With a careful, deliberate motion, it placed the bundle gently on the floor. Then, with a soft nudge of its nose, it pushed it toward her before sitting back on its haunches, watching. Waiting. The only sound was the relentless drumming of rain against the hospital windows. Elia's hands trembled as she knelt down, reaching for the soaked cloth. Slowly, cautiously, she peeled it back. Her breath caught in her throat. Inside was a baby, a tiny infant, no older than a few days. Its skin was pale, its little chest rising and falling weakly. Its lips had a bluish tint. Then, a soft, pitiful cry escaped its fragile frame. Tears welled in Elia's eyes. This baby was barely clinging to life. Without hesitation, her training kicked in. She turned, her voice firm and urgent. "We need a pediatric team, now!" What had happened? Where had this baby come from? And why? Why had a lion, nature's fiercest predator, delivered it here to them? The answer would shake them all to their very core. The stunned silence in the hospital was shattered by a single commanding voice. "No one touches that lion." Nurse Elia Carter's words rang through the room, cutting through the tension like a blade. The lion, soaked from the storm, sat motionless in the center of the lobby, its golden mane dripping water onto the polished floor. Its intelligent amber eyes never left Elia, watching her every move with an almost knowing gaze. It wasn't afraid. It wasn't aggressive. It was simply waiting. As the team of doctors and nurses rushed in, whisking the fragile infant away to the neonatal unit, Elia turned back to the creature. Nothing about this made sense. Where had it come from? Why had it delivered the baby here? And how? How could a wild animal display such precise care, such undeniable understanding? A sharp voice snapped her from her thoughts. What is going on here? Dr. Marcus Green, the hospital's chief physician, had just arrived. His eyes darted from Elia to the lion, his face frozen in sheer disbelief. Elia swallowed hard, her voice trembling as she explained. The lion brought the baby. It just walked in and laid the child down. It knew something was wrong. Dr. Green's stern expression softened as he glanced toward the bundle now being hurried away to intensive care. His gaze shifted back to the lion. "And the lion?" he asked cautiously. Elia shook her head. "I don't know." The great beast hadn't moved. It remained perfectly still, rain dripping from its fur, radiating an eerie calm, as if waiting for something. Or someone. Security had begun to close in, their radios crackling with frantic chatter. One of them raised a tranquilizer gun, his hands shaking. "Stand down!" Elia's voice was firm, unwavering. "That lion saved a life tonight. We owe it the same care." Dr. Green hesitated but nodded, trusting her instincts. "Let's figure this out." But before anyone could act, the lion stirred. With one final glance at Elia, it turned, its powerful frame moving with quiet grace. It padded toward the entrance, pausing at the threshold. For a moment, it looked back, one last time, before vanishing into the storm, swallowed by the night. The entire hospital stood frozen, the weight of the moment settling over them. Then, footsteps. A nurse rushed toward Elia, breathless, clutching something in her hands. "I found this in the baby's blanket." She handed Elia a small, slightly tarnished gold locket. Elia's fingers trembled as she opened it. Inside was a faded photograph, a woman cradling a newborn, her smile soft yet haunting. On the back of the locket, an inscription, "For Anna. Protect him, no matter the cost." Elia's heart pounded. Who was Anna? Was she the baby's mother? What had happened to her? And how was the lion connected to all of this? Outside, the storm raged on, but inside, Elia felt something shift. This night, this impossible, unbelievable night, was just the beginning of something far greater than she could have ever imagined. The rhythmic hum of the incubator filled the room, a steady counterpoint to the storm still whispering against the hospital windows. The baby's tiny chest rose and fell with newfound strength. Color had returned to his fragile skin. His breath, once faint and uncertain, now came in steady, reassuring patterns. Dr. Marcus Green emerged from the room, his expression a strange mix of relief and lingering disbelief. "He's stable, for now," he said, exhaling deeply. "Dehydrated, hypothermic, but no signs of physical trauma. It's a miracle, Elia. Whoever or whatever brought him here saved his life." Elia nodded, her fingers tightening around the locket in her palm. "But who is he, Marcus?" she murmured. "And what happened to him before he got here?" "That lion. It didn't just stumble in. It knew. It understood." Before Dr. Green could respond, the soft chime of the hospital intercom echoed through the hallway. "Security to the main entrance. We have a situation." Elia's stomach twisted. She turned to Dr. Green, instincts taking over. "Stay with the baby," she said firmly. "I'll handle this." The main lobby was no longer the eerie, surreal scene it had been moments ago. The storm had eased into a drizzle, but outside, chaos had taken its place. Police officers, reporters, onlookers drawn by whispers of the impossible. Elia pushed through the growing crowd, spotting Carl, the head of security, deep in conversation with two officers. "What's going on?" she asked, keeping her voice steady despite the turmoil around her. Carl gestured toward a lone figure standing just beyond the hospital doors. A man, tall, with unkempt hair and a face lined with exhaustion. His clothes were drenched from the rain. His eyes, wild and desperate, darted around as if searching for something, or someone. In his trembling hand, he clutched a photograph. "He showed up a few minutes ago," Carl explained. "Says he's looking for his son, claims he knows about the lion." Elia's pulse quickened. "His son?" She stepped forward, her gaze locking onto the man's. "Sir," she said gently, "I'm Nurse Carter. You said you're looking for your son?" The man swallowed hard, his hands shaking as he extended the photograph. Elia's breath caught in her throat. The image was unmistakable. The same woman. The same woman from the locket. The photograph in David's trembling hands was almost identical to the locket Elia held. The same woman, the same baby. But this time, he was in the picture too. His arm was wrapped protectively around the woman, his expression one of pure pride. "My name is David," he said, his voice thick with grief. "My wife, Anna, she passed away 3 days ago. Our car went off the road during the storm. I tried to get help, but when I came back, the baby was gone. I thought I'd lost him too." Elia's breath caught in her throat. "Your wife's name was Anna?" David nodded, his eyes brimming with unshed tears. "She gave me this." With shaking hands, he pulled out a matching gold locket. "It was hers," he whispered. "She said it was meant to protect him, no matter what." Elia's grip tightened around the locket in her own hand. "David, your baby is here. He's safe." David exhaled sharply, relief washing over him. But before he could speak, Elia hesitated. How did she even begin to explain the unexplainable? "There's something else." She swallowed hard. "A lion brought him to us." David's face froze. Disbelief, shock, confusion. "A lion?" Elia nodded. "It walked into the hospital carrying your son in a blanket. It didn't hurt anyone, it just left him here. Do you know anything about that?" David's expression suddenly changed, his face going pale, his hands gripping the locket like a lifeline. And then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said, "It was Anna's wish." Elia blinked. "What do you mean?" David took a shaky breath. "Anna grew up near a wildlife sanctuary. There was a lion there she cared for as a child. His name was Solomon. She always said he was special, almost like he could understand her. Before she passed, she told me that if anything happened to us, Solomon would know." He let out a choked, incredulous laugh. I thought she was delirious, but now—" His voice cracked as fresh tears spilled down his face. Elia placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. "David, your son is alive because of her, because of her love. The lion somehow brought him here. We don't know how. We may never understand. But what matters is that he's here, and he needs you." A father's tears. In the neonatal unit, David stood over the incubator, his breath shaky, his hands pressed against the glass. His son stirred. A tiny, delicate hand reached out, as if sensing his father's presence. David let out a soft, broken chuckle. "He looks just like her." His voice was barely above a whisper. "Like Anna." Tears streamed down his face as he turned to Elia. "Thank you for saving him." Elia smiled gently. "It wasn't just us, David. Solomon knew." David nodded, still unable to look away from his son. "I don't know how to repay you." Elia shook her head. "There's nothing to repay. Your wife's love, that lion's instinct. They brought him here. That's all that matters." But as she stood there, watching the beautiful reunion, a lingering thought settled in her chest. Where had Solomon gone? How could he have acted with such intelligence? And why did it feel like this wasn't the end of the story? The final goodbye. As the first golden rays of morning broke through the clouds, Elia found herself standing outside the hospital doors, drawn by an invisible force. She scanned the empty streets, and then she saw him, beyond the edge of the hospital parking lot, standing in the fading shadows. Solomon. The great lion stood tall, majestic, his golden mane catching the first light of dawn. His amber eyes met hers one last time. Elia's breath hitched. She didn't feel fear, only understanding. For a long moment, they simply watched each other, two beings connected by a night neither would ever forget. Then, with a low, rumbling sound, not a growl, but something deeper, something almost like farewell. Solomon turned and disappeared into the trees. Elia stood there, heart pounding, eyes wet, locket clutched tightly in her hand. The world would never know what truly happened that night, but she did, because sometimes love and loyalty transcend understanding. And on that stormy night, a lion had proven it.